DreamWorks has been a main competitor in the world of animation for almost 30 years at this point, and they've produced no shortage of both great and terrible films. And with the upcoming release of The Wild Robot, I thought I'd go over the 5 best and worst DreamWorks films up to this point. And why am I not ranking them? Well, because in that scenario, there's too goddamn many. Maybe I'll do that at a later date. But today, we're gonna go over the 5 best and worst DreamWorks films as of this point. When this movie released back in 2017, the audience responded to it with a collective, huh? This is one of the most mind-bogglingly dumb movies I've ever seen in my life. And I understand the concept is supposed to be that it's a kid's dream when he's told he's going to get a little brother, so this all takes place during a dream sequence from how it's framed, but then it'll do some dumb shit like cut to the parent's perspective as if this is actually happening, just not as he's seeing it, but none of it's supposed to be happening at all. Nothing in the screenplay makes any sense. It's not very well written. The voice acting is, I guess, fine, and the only reason this takes the top of the list instead of being way lower or higher, depending on how you look at it, is because it is kind of hilariously bad. It can get into so bad it's good territory, which is not something I can say for the rest of the films on this list. Ignoring the god-awful 4th movie, the Kung Fu Panda trilogy is probably the best franchise DreamWorks has had. Or at least the most consistently good, and I consider the second movie to be the best of the bunch. The first one is pretty good, but it does lack some more darker, serious moments that this movie definitely had, and the third movie largely struggled with the same thing. I like that we delve deeper into Poe's backstory, because that's not something we really did in the first movie, and I like his connection to the villain. His connection to the first movie's villain was mainly around Shifu and the Dragon Warrior concept, and the connection to the third movie's villain is, again, based around more Oogway than it is Poe. So I like that we actually have a closer connection between hero and villain in this. There's a lot more darker moments to it, which I really like. This is the Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy, or the Infinity War of this trilogy. It's the darker one of the franchise, and I like how it all comes together. There's not a lot of forced dark moments to it, and we get some, I was gonna say human moments, but that, you can kind of tell why I didn't go with there, but there's a lot more personal moments between him and the Furious Five, considering they've accepted him into their ranks at this point and aren't trying to get him to leave. So I largely consider this one to be the best Kung Fu Panda movie. The only reason it isn't higher is because I didn't grow up watching this one, and the other 3, and then one that's pretty new that I would consider better, are ones that are more personal to me. I own a movie on DVD, I don't remember which one it is, that has this trailer playing before it, so I've seen this trailer many times. Might have been Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters, more I think about it. And I remember every single time I saw this trailer as a preview, I remember thinking, this movie looks pretty stupid, I'm going to avoid this for as long as possible. Turns out that was much better than ever watching this movie. This is one of the stupidest fucking movies I've ever seen. A snail that can go fast sounds like an okay idea for a short film, but doesn't track, no pun intended, for an entire hour and a half or however long this is. The villain is up there as far as twist villains go, with movies like Frozen, The Dark Knight Rises, and Paul Blart Mall Cop for shitty twist villains, and the climax for this movie was so fucking stupid. I never want to see this thing ever again. Someone get me the salt so I can put this fucking snail out of its misery. Let me first say that Kung Fu Panda 2 technically is a better movie. Doesn't mean I'm putting it higher on my list. This is probably the DreamWorks film that I have seen the most times, and I'll tell you why. Because it's just a feel-good comedy. There doesn't need to be any deep messages in this movie, or any political propaganda, or anything. It's just here to have fun for an hour and a half, and fun is something that is gravely missing from cinema nowadays. And again, even as a kid, I watched this movie over and over and over again, even more so than movies like Shrek, or all of the other big ones. This was mine. And again, it's kind of hard to explain other than the fact that it's just a feel-good comedy. The characters are likable, the jokes are fast, but not too fast to the point where you're missing everything. The voice acting is all stellar, and I love the animation. I love how the animation moves, which makes the movie even funnier. The speed of the animation can make jokes all on its own without having the characters say anything. And that's what good animation should do, especially in a comedy like this. It's hard to explain why I like this movie so much other than the nostalgia goggles, but even taking those nostalgia goggles off, I think this is a criminally overlooked film. It's too bad the sequels weren't as good. The Dreamworks film that looks and sounds like a Sony animated film from 2003. This is easily the most forgettable film in their entire catalog, and I will tell you why. Because this movie came out last year, I reviewed it, and most people who follow this channel have no idea what this even is. I'm serious, there have been people asking me, what the hell is Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken? Well, I'll tell you, it's a shitty movie that doesn't take advantage of a relatively interesting concept involving Lovecraftian monsters like Krakens, or then introducing ones like mermaids. I think the backstory of this is one of those movies where the backstory of the movie would have been a much more interesting movie. It's up there with movies like X-Men Origins Wolverine and the Power Rangers movie from 2017, where the flashback scenes are the most interesting part of the movie, but the rest of the movie is just high school bullshit. It's the fish out of water story, no pun intended, where the person doesn't fit in because of some reason. In this case, it's a Kraken, and it's mostly just stupid high school drama. I think the dad got a couple, but I don't remember which character it was. There was one character that got a couple laughs, but other than that, this movie was a fucking slog. Let's just say it was dead in the water. The film that was sadly overlooked for way too many years. All of a sudden, a few years ago, this movie finally started to gain an audience, but by that point, it was way too late, and that was shown with the crappy sequel that came out earlier this year, and that TV show, which, no, I still have not watched. The voice acting is all on point. This is probably the only movie where Will Ferrell hasn't annoyed the fuck out of me. The animation, of course, looks great, but it's really the story and the psychological aspects of the characters that people really like to focus on with this film. A villain becoming a hero is nothing new in cinema, but the way it's done in the simple case of, is the villain actually a villain, or is that just how he's raised? Well, he was nurtured to be a villain, but is villainy really in his nature? That's the entire aspect. The nature versus nurture aspect is something that's heavily focused on in this film, and he constantly goes back and forth. And that's what people really latch onto with this film. And I think Titan is not only a really funny, but an appropriate threat for Megamind to face off with at the end of the film. And I really wish this had spawned a franchise 10 years ago, because it probably would, because I guess a sequel probably would have been a lot better in, say, 2013 than the bullshit we got earlier this year.
Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, the new film. And if you love...
The only reason, and I mean only reason, why this movie is not #1 is because everybody knew this movie was going to be shit the very second the trailer hit YouTube. This was a cynical cash grab, and everybody knew it, and thankfully it seemed like pretty much nobody on the planet other than me and a couple other people actually watched it. And I'm wondering how many less watched the garbage TV show. Like I said, no, I haven't watched it, and I don't really want to take time out of my life to watch it. I said everything I needed to say in my review. The animation is atrocious, the replacement voice actors are not very good, they turned Megamind into a bumbling idiot for some reason, despite him supposed to be the smartest man in the universe. And they of course have to add the annoying kid sidekick into the film. The villains are atrocious, the dialogue is terrible, and turning Megamind into a streamer hero makes me want to beat the shit out of every single person that works at Dreamworks and Peacock.
Well, maybe I'm in love. Think about it every time I think about it. Can't stop thinking about...
Many consider this to not only be the best Dreamworks film of all time, but one of the best animated films of all time, and I can definitely see why. Unlike some sequels, like the one that beat Kung Fu Panda 2 at the box office, which if you didn't know, it's Hangover Part 2. Ew. It didn't just try to do the same thing as the first movie. I mean, it'd be incredibly hard in this case, but you know, some idiot filmmaker would find a way. This movie built upon the first movie, and the concept on paper sounds really stupid. Shrek meeting Fiona's parents after she becomes an ogre, that sounds really bad on paper. But the way it's done is not only incredibly heartfelt, but it's also incredibly funny. I like the villains of this movie, Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming. I wish Prince Charming had been a better villain in the third movie. Maybe had they made him more intimidating and less of a joke in the third movie, he could have worked better, but I digress. Puss in Boots was a great addition. The soundtrack is still amazing. The animation looks way better than the first movie, because the first movie intentionally looked rough around the edges, but it does look pretty rough still. So pretty much everything in this movie was an upgrade over the first movie, and keep in mind that I really liked the first movie, so that's some pretty high praise coming from me. Megamind 2 was definitely a contender for this spot, but Will Smith fish. That's it. I don't have to say anything else. There is more, but I don't have to say it. Will Smith fish. This thing is fucking disturbing, as well as the rest of the celebrity fishes, including Angelina Jolie and Renee Zellweger. But putting aside the hideous, nightmare-inducing animation, the story is stupid, the voice acting is annoying, especially Jack Black. Will Smith fish is just exactly that, Will Smith fish. He's just Will Smith as a fish. There's no character here. And the character we do get is an insufferable asshole who treats everybody around him like shit, and really doesn't learn a lesson by the end of the movie. Yay. That's exactly what we needed. An egotistical dickhead who doesn't learn anything by the end. And again, what I already said, the story is stupid. Jack Black's shark is one of the most annoying performances ever put on film, and just nothing comes together. And do I even need to mention all the puns in this movie? I could go over some of the worst, but if I were to go through even just a few of the worst ones, we'd be here all day. Five years ago, if you told me a Puss in Boots sequel would become the best Dreamworks film of all time, I would have laughed in your face and called you an idiot. And rightfully so, because the first movie was the definition of mediocrity. Everything about it was fine. The characters, the story, the animation, the action, it was all fine. And then this movie took everything about that movie and amped it up to 11. The villains are some of the best we've gotten out of Dreamworks. And again, we get a different type of villain with each one. We get an evil entity, we get a redeemable villain, and we get an irredeemable asshole. I like the addition of Perrito. He's a very good, fun side character akin to Donkey, but slightly less annoying because Donkey did get annoying after a while. And I like Kitty Softpaws. I like that they did the thing in between movies where they broke him off. But I like how they did it in this film. Top Gun Maverick did the same thing, but again, that movie did it well. And I was pretty surprised when I found out that this was going to be the best film of 2022. Again, the trailers made this movie look like just an average kid's film. But it turned out to be everything you could have wanted out of it, just an animated film in general. Likeable characters, great animation, great villains, great action, and a story that can keep your interest and actually has a lot of great unique ideas. This is what we want out of Hollywood nowadays, but unfortunately, they don't like to oblige. Well, as of today, that's the 5 best and worst Dreamworks films, at least according to me. I know I'm gonna piss off some people because on the worst list, for some reason, people like Shark Tale, I guess. That doesn't make sense to me. And the best, I know a lot of people are gonna bitch about me not having the How to Train Your Dragon movies on there, but I really don't care. I've said many times, if you have issues with my list, that's your problem, not mine. So list your top and bottom 5 movies of Dreamworks down in the comments. Will The Wild Robot make either list? I have a hard time believing it, but I guess we'll find out when the movie comes out in a couple weeks. So that's all I got, and I'll see you next time. Bye.